Okay, good morning everybody. Thanks for coming. First of all, I want to say you won't see too many colors of red today in my presentation. That's not because I do not like the color red, it's because this is a special kind of projector which does not display the color red. So you will see there are a lot of arrows and small nodes which are normally in red, but now they're in black. So, thank you. My name is Lemmens. I work at Amplexor. I'm a consultant there. I've been doing Drupal since 2009. My main job these days is talking to clients, talking about their requirements, about their expectations for new content management system, doing technical architecture, and also development of Drupal websites. First of all, I want to talk about why I wanted to give this talk today. Does anybody recognize this booklet? Anybody, any idea what this booklet is? It's a user manual. It's a user manual from my car, from the car entertainment system. So radio, telephone, GPS, that kind of things. It's anybody know how thick the booklet is? Actually, it's 60 pages thick. It's 60 pages for only the radio, the GPS, the phone, and some other small functions. That's crazy. What can you possibly do with a 60 pages booklet? How long does it take to read it? Why do you have to read it to make sure you can use the car radio? Actually, car audio systems are kind of hard to use. You probably all know that. Does anybody has a car with a good UI for the car entertainment system? You have. You have a Tesla maybe? Yeah.
No.
There are,
My wife got a new Mercedes and the interface.
it's getting better. It's getting better. But it is a really nasty user interface in most cases. Compared to this system, it's this one is from Apple. It's CarPlay. Android has the same one, and it projects actually the user interface from your phone to your car displays, and it maps it on the functions of the buttons of the car, and it's much easier to use. It has no manual. It's the same when you buy a smartphone nowadays. It's so easy to use. You know your way around it. There's no manual. So it offers a much better user experience for the user. He does not have to think about it. He does not have to read manuals to use it. It's very fluently. That's mostly the problem with the old car systems. Is the frame rate is like 15 frames per second or so. The dials and the knobs react very slowly to what the user is doing. So this offers a much better user experience, and the user will be much happier when using this system. Maybe you will have less accidents. I don't know. Well, what does that have to do with Drupal? Well, in our experience, actually, we think that Drupal also lags a bit behind in this user interface, in this user experience territory, and especially for non-technical users. It says that it has a negative impact for non-technical users, like authors, content editors, marketers. Let's call them just authors for now, to make it more easy. Those are the people who do not have the technical skills in most cases to use the system. And does that really matter? Does it really matter what these people, how they can use the system? Well, it turns out yes, a bad usability, bad user experience is a negative impact on the productivity of these people. They cannot do their job as good as they would be if the user experience would be much better. And also it has a negative impact on their moods. People tend to get cranky when systems do not operate the way they are used to or the way they expect. So expectations are also much higher nowadays with all the smart devices, which are much easier to use compared to the old age of computing. It really does matter. It also matters because the responsibility not only for buying content management system or other software, the responsibility also for using the systems is now shifting. It has been a while shifting from technical departments, IT departments, to more marketing department. In the marketing department, people are not that technical. And because that shift is important, that the product we are building is taking care of that good UX, which helps sell the product, and it makes the product easier to use. And there's also another factor that's called the wow factor. You can have any product which will do the job. Probably your car stereo, for example, will show you where you want to go, show you the way. Will play your DVD, but there's a difference between will it play my DVD or how will it play it? Is it easy to change songs? Is it easy to switch to different functions? And if it really works very well, the client will be very wowed by the system, which is much better compared to, yeah, it just does the job. Clients will be much happier with the system. Is really great to use. So I just want to go over some causes now. What are the causes of this negative attention to UX in Drupal? I think first of all, the Drupal community is mostly consisting of technical profiles. That's always been the case. Technical people, engineers working on PHP, designing interfaces for technical people, which is great, by the way. As a site developer, it's a dream to work with Drupal. You can click interfaces together, you can click views, content types, not that much coding going on there. It's very good to use for technical people. On the other hand, you have the non-technical people. It's another story. Actually, you can summarize it like this. I think that Drupal is mainly built, in the first place, for site builders. There are people, like I just said, clicking sites together, building websites. Secondly, we have developers, people coding, writing custom code, writing custom modules. And third, in the last place, you have authors. And it's a bit of a pity. When you turn it on a scale, you see the focus is right now very heavy focus on site builders and developers, not so much on those non-technical people. Okay. Second cause, I think, is that Drupal is not a well tightly integrated system. It's not an off-the-shelf product. You have to combine the core with different contributed modules and your own custom modules. That's a very powerful way of working, but it also has some impact on the user experience, you must know. Because you are tying together all different kinds of systems built by different kinds of people, you will get a not so coherent system. People will document things in different ways, people will use other user interface elements to present something or to build some functions. It's not a really coherent system, it's not that consistent. It has a negative impact also on the UX. Another reason maybe is that website content is not always that structured. And Drupal is very strong in modeling structured content. It has its fields, taxonomies, all these kinds of things to really have a fine-grained, break down the content in really fine-grained elements, which we mostly put in fields. But it turns out most websites will have a lot of unstructured content too. And Drupal is not very good at unstructured content. The focus is mainly by nature on that structured content, which is a good thing and a bad thing maybe. So what is structured and unstructured content? On the left-hand side is an example from the Apple website. On the left-hand side you have very structured content. This is the support pages of apple.com, and you will see you can easily build that stuff with Drupal. You have an image and then some pages behind it, probably notes classified using taxonomies in 3 columns. You can add things to these columns by tagging in the right way. No big deal, it works very well. On the right hand side, on the other hand, you have unstructured content. That is more like a marketing page to make people buy products, to impress people with new features. And what it makes special is that it's unstructured. It can take whatever form it can. If you look at the Apple page on the Apple website for the iPad, it will look totally different. It will not say iPad and then even bigger and then an image and then 3 links and a text. It will look totally different. And that's what marketers want to do. They want to change the layout, change the way a message is set to the user, totally dependent on the product they're trying to present. So that is unstructured content. It's not that easy to do with Drupal. You can make a template, but all the pages will look the same. Not much variation. So, I want to go a bit deeper now into where the problems actually are in most cases, the low-hanging fruit, like they call it. There are actually 4 things, major things. I think it's first of all you have UI consistencies because it's not an off-the-shelf product like we talked about. There's asset management, page building tools, and the creation of links and references. And I'm going to have a quick drink now. Welcome. So, 4 things. And this is based totally on our experience with dealing with customers. So, let's go a bit deeper into each one of them. UI inconsistencies. I took a quick example from modal dialog. So there are things that pop up over other content, so-called overlays. Different possibilities there. On the left-hand side, you have Drupal core, Drupal 7 core overlay. It actually tries to do a good job by keeping the authors away from the backend. You not have the feeling you go to the backend because the front end of the website stays behind the overlay. Nicely done, has some technical issues, is gone from Drupal 8 for obvious reasons. In the middle you have CK editor link. It's a model we often use, and actually it presents another type of dialog. There's a green button to approve the action, to say okay. It has a totally different look and feel on the left-hand side, and also the right-hand side, which is the edit dialog for file entity. When you are using file entity to manage media or documents, you can go and edit the file, and you will see that dialog, and that is actually a CTools modal. It's created using CTools modals API. Totally different style. You see the background in the left-hand side is washed out in white, the middle one is washed out in black, and the right and the left-hand one. Also the close button, for example, see closely. Right there, it jumps out a bit, it's black, here it's inside the dialog, here it's red, and you can see that it's red and it's in the right-hand corner, and it says close next to it. Bit messy all. Hard to document this stuff. Hard for a client to get used to one way it's working. They also always see different kinds of dialogues, different user interfaces. In a minute we'll go a bit deeper in what solutions there are currently in the Drupal ecosystem for this, but first I'm going to dig a bit into the problems. Second thing is asset management. You can have file fields and image fields, and you can also use, for example, the media module to manage assets in Drupal, that is images, documents, video, etc. But the media module is actually, in my opinion, more like a framework, a starting point to build a real solution on. And there's not that much time in most projects to build such a good real solution. We should make some standard solution, I think, based on that. In the middle I will show a demo of another content management system with asset management to take a look at how they handle it. But assets, I think, are more and more important in the day-to-day web. When we're talking more about marketing websites, there are big libraries with images, big libraries with video. It's important that you can organize these videos and easily select one and put one in a page. You can build it with the media module, of course, but it has to be built. It's not fully functional out of the box. It's not good enough. That's why I call it a framework. Then we have linking and referencing. Last thing. We had a client a couple of months ago. At the end of the project, he was so confused by how to link to things or how to refer to things. You can do it in a number of ways in Drupal. This was a Drupal 7 project. It's much better in Drupal 8, but not perfect yet. You can have links from inside your CK editor. On the left-hand side, CK editor link again. You can have, there's a drop-down in there to say I have an external URL, I have an internal path, I have an email, I have an anchor, that kind of thing. Then you go, for example, to the menu system, where you have to put in your path manually. And it prefers /node or node/ and then the node ID. You have to guess it, you have to go find it. There are modules which do auto-completion, for example, in the menu system to add menu links, but compared to entity reference, for example, they will do auto-completion on the path and not on the title of the node. Kind of hard to explain. And then, like I said, you have entity reference, and the same goes for redirect module, which also expects node/. Entity reference is doing it on title. Turns out a lot of websites which are multilingual have the same titles, can have the same titles for certain pages, like contact. You have a contact page in Dutch, it's also contact in English, and in other languages will probably also be contact. Try to link to a contact page from a auto-completion field on the title. It will just say contact, 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 like you see there. You can patch it, you can make a hook to display the language after it, but all things you have to take care of and not so easy to use. Solution to some of these problems is a very good module, by the way. It's called Entity Reference Views widget, which is now very good, which was not fully stable last year, but now it's really good. You can pick nodes using a browser. You browse through a set of nodes by using filters, and you pick the correct node and you have a reference. That's the way to go, and it should be on all these systems. It should work the same way. It works very good. Intuitive page building. So what about this unstructured content? Are there solutions? What we actually now see in Drupal 8 is we have an inline editor now, which you can use to change text inline, but it involves putting large blobs of text together with images in a rich text field like you see here. That's not really a good way of working. It solves the problem of unstructured content. You can go ahead and do whatever you want, but it's dangerous stuff. Like for example, images will not be cropped automatically or scaled automatically in all cases. It's not good for consistency, even in some cases the image will be 300 pixels wide, the other case will be 200 pixels wide. It's not really, you need a bit of structure, but this is too much flexibility. You cannot reuse the content you enter here in other places. Also accessibility, authors will try anything, believe me. They will use tables to do things which are not used to be done with tables, among other things. Also, if you go headless, for example, you have everything in one body field. You cannot easily say, get me the image which belongs to this piece of text, or these kinds of things. It needs more structure than this. Okay, so how can we make Drupal better? Are there ways? Is there some thinking we can use to make it better? Well, first of all, I think it's important that you know your audience. Mostly by audience I mean the client here. So is he a power user? Which can be. He can be technical. We had a client a couple of half a year ago which was very technical in the CMS. Who wrote HTML and CSS even. And there are really true beginners, which maybe just content editors and authors. We just have to enter text in the system and maybe even put it in the menu, put it in the workflow and send to other people to review. Very, very much beginners there. And it's important that you analyze enough that you prototype the test. That's very important, and a good way of working towards customers is prototype things. Show them things quickly out of the box with Drupal. That's very easy to do in Drupal, like for example the menu system. Combine it with menu block, for example, and you can build a whole menu navigation structure. You can even show it to the client. You can build it in 1 hour or something, show it to them and verify if that way of working is a good way forward. And you have to not to spend too much time doing it, and you will get feedback very soon. Then you can start actually building if you have positive feedback, or alter it if necessary. And it's important that you build full solutions and not only features. That's maybe a more seen from a community perspective. When building modules, you can build a module which has a certain feature but not really solves that problem. And they can be combined with other modules to create a full solution to solve a real problem. But then again, you will have these inconsistencies. A good example is, for example, Workbench moderation. In my opinion, it's one suite you install. It's one integrated suite. You get all the features. You get a new dashboard in the backend to do easier finding of your content, seeing what content belongs to you, putting it in the moderation state, pushing it to a workflow, and you have a nice UI in the front end and in the back end. That's solving a problem. There are other modules which not really solve a problem, like, for example, maybe a bad example, you have Pure Panels module, which solves a problem for site builders but not for editors. It's too complicated to use for editors and authors. It's a tool for site builders. It's one piece of the puzzle. Okay. Also important, I think, in the Drupal community is that we should embrace people with knowledge of these things. Because like I said, most people are technical and nobody to blame, excellent technical people, but we should also try to pull in UX people, UI people, make them interested in Drupal. Because Drupal, you can build anything with it, but you have to have the right skills to build stuff in the right way with good UX. They have a lot of skills and they can contribute. And UX is something that you cannot put in the end. You should take into account the whole process when building something. Is it a modular, is it a solution for a customer? It's something you have to take into account from the beginning. If you try to hack it on there, in the last part you will have troubles and you have to go back to the beginning and change things under the hood. So it's important, for example, when creating a solution, think about how will it look, how will it behave, what options, what functions does it need, and maybe I can have it verified by the customer before I even start building it. And then you can start with the technical stuff. It's actually compared to building a solution starting from the technology or starting from the user experience and work your way back to the technology. In Drupal, the technology right now with Drupal 8 is very good, very stable, nicely architecture there. We can really start paying attention to UX, I think, now. To increase consistency, for example. This is an example from OS 10, from Mac OS 10. They have human interface guidelines. It's a rather extended documentation for how, if you build apps on OS 10, how to build them, user interface wise. And it really shows, you can actually compare it a bit, Drupal and the system Apple is using for iPhone, for example. You have the core system, which is OS 10 or iOS, and you have app developers building apps. Same goes a bit for Drupal. You can compare it like you have Drupal core, and then you have the module developers, which are building modules in Contrib. I think there should be a bit more guidelines there, pushed from core to the Contrib developers to have a more streamlined user interface across core and Contrib. This is an example for OS 10, like I said. It even has guidelines of how the order of the menu item should be, how you should display shortcuts in the menu, and all these kinds of guidelines. And also important, what they have is also they have terminology, guidelines for terminology. They say you cannot use reboot, you have to say restart instead. So a regular user understands it. Nobody understands reboot if he doesn't know anything about a computer. Restarting, that's okay too. And also things like cursor should be pointer or the other way around. But a lot of guidelines there. And that if we had those guidelines in Drupal and it could be a bit more strict, what contributed modules could do on the UX side, I think we can have a more consistent feeling there. And also important, I think, is to stay as close to core as possible while building something. In a minute we'll talk about Panoply, which is a distribution for Drupal. Very nice distribution, but it adds a lot of complexity because it builds upon layers from panels, and there are modules which build upon panels, like panels IDE, and it builds upon that. It increases complexity a lot for solutions. So if you stay closer to core, it will be easier to do updates, it will be easier to do migrations. You do not have to wait too long for modules. If you are combining 20 modules to build a solution, you have to wait a long time if new versions of Drupal come out. Other thing is, if you switch a lot from backend to front and from backend to front and then back all the time, it will confuse the user. That was the good part about overlay. It reduced that. Other thing is that you should be more generic and not be too structured, and that when of the modeling content action. You see here is an example from a web page, and you see a block there with the red and the red rectangle, and you can actually do it in different ways. This red rectangle there, you can have one node with 4 fields. It can be a content type which you make a node from, and you drop it there. It has a image, title, text, and a button. Works great. Other way of handling it would be you can split it up in 4 components actually. You can split the image component, the title, text, and the call to action or button. you can split them up in other components and then give the end user, the author, the possibility to combine these in different ways. Like if the author wants the button on the top, he can do it. He can just say, I want the button, then the title, and then the text. Or I want to leave out the image, or I want only the image, for example. That's another way of thinking about it. Not that strict in templates, but more about components. We'll see a bit later about ways to do that. It's actually, you can compare it by to giving your client a library of components which you can use. And you will see, I had some anecdotes at the office yesterday where a client was combining these components in ways that weren't even designed in the graphical design or even in the wireframes. They were not present, but he was combining them in new ways, and he was finding new solutions or new ways to present his content on the website. That's interesting. Indeed. Other thing which could help authors is provide sample content. Let's say the author wants to add this kind of block to a page. Let's say he adds the block and immediately get this content. This is sample content which will get him started. He will immediately look like, all right, I have a very big title, I can change it. I can change the text, and I can have this button and change the color maybe. So if he inserts a piece of content, it would be nice if there was already the sample content. A lot of other content management systems are doing this. Interesting to help the client speed up the work, or to help him see what he can do with a component. And lastly, it's also not bad to look at competitors, I think. Get inspired by them, but importantly, important is do not ignore that. They are doing also things in other ways, which are all have benefits and negative sides, but it's important to take a look what competitors are doing. So let's do that right now. I have looked for two examples. First of all, we'll look at the demo. I wanted to show was Squarespace. I'm not sure, is anyone familiar with Squarespace? All right. It's hosted, like I said, and it has a very cool way of building pages. So you can see we have edit controls, which you can activate. And you see those little black dots appearing with lines if you hover over them. And there you can say, oh, what you want to insert in this place. And you have a whole library. This is the library I was talking about, of things you can insert. It goes from full components to just lines or just titles. This is a map, and you can see it's one user interface. It does never change behavior. It's always the same. You get this little pop-up. You say where the address is in this case. It has integration with Google. And you can also change the design to all the things you can do with Google Maps. In this case, make it not show black and white. And now you can combine different pieces. You can say, like, now we go into the bottom and we can insert, I think you can insert some text now. You can search here, or a quote, so you can easily find components and paste it in there. And you will never see something weird about the UI. Different colors of buttons, it's always looking the same. That's a quote. And what I'm not showing here, you also have layout controls. You can create a sidebar by just dragging the component to the side, and it will pop up a sidebar and you can put it in there. And that's how you control the layout. It has even got charts with editors. And probably most of you are thinking now, you can do this stuff with Drupal too. Yes, you can, but not in this way. There are modules which you can use to draw charts. There are modules which you can use to do Google Maps, but not in this way. And this is really what makes it interesting, the ease of use. Last thing was a carousel. Right here you can see the text editor popping up. And you will see it's also got inline editing, small control there to make things bold. We also have that now in Drupal 8. The inline editing is really cool. And you can see you can even insert between paragraphs there. There was you can insert headings, etc. lastly, it's going to insert a carousel, which is also interesting because it has integration with other services too, like Get the Images. It's something like stock image website, and it's also integrated, and you never change UI. So let's say, for example, you have existing, you can upload media, and you can click Getty there, and you go to a separate screen, and here you can browse every image on Getty. You can search, and you just click the one you want. It uploads them to your server into the CMS, and you can create a carousel this way. Very powerful stuff. Never changing UI there. Always the same UX. So let's take a look now at the existing solutions in Drupal, what we have in Drupal, and what we can add to make it more powerful. So, who knows about content preview in Drupal 8? Anybody noticed it? It was not that well advertised on Drupal.org. But the preview button right there used to be not that good in Drupal 7. Doesn't actually do anything useful because it shows your content in the backend interface, or shows it in a very unclear way. It shows all these controls which you have as an admin around it. It's not really useful. In Drupal 8 it's fully fixed now. Try to click it in Drupal 8 and you will go to the front end. You will see exactly what the web page will look like to your visitors. And you have this bar at the top which is unobtrusive. The left hand side there, the blue button, to go back to the backend. And this drop down lets you change the view mode. So teaser, default view mode, full content, or go to teaser or other view modes you have defined. And you can quickly see what this piece of content will look like in different view modes. Very powerful. You can also use it on a reduced browser window and see what it looks like on an iPhone, for example. It, however, has one downside to it. It's time consuming to switch between front end and back end. And like we said in the beginning of the presentation, do not switch too much between front end and back end. But it's a very good improvement to the way things were in Drupal 7 and before. Inline editing then, which you can see here, which actually resembles a lot the system used by Squarespace. It's a pity it only works on existing pages. There will be solutions in content maybe to fix that, but you first have to create a page in the backend, then go to the front end, and then you can use it to change things. Actually it was built to change what is there already. If you want to start with a clean page and you want to start adding text, it does not work. And the UI is also a bit confusing, a bit buggy, but that will solve itself over time. As you can see here on the bottom screenshot, there are some minor defects in the UI, and all, small details, but they will get fixed in 8.1 probably. Monopoly. This is actually really nice distribution to place components freely on a page. It takes over the full layout engine, which is default in Drupal. It's built on panels, and you can see here we have user interface to add blocks to different places in the page, to reorder even between regions. So you can drag a block from the left hand side into the sidebar. You can add components, and you can save the layout, or you can revert to the original layout. And Monopoly not only does this, but also provides you a new editing form for it in the backend. It optimizes all kinds of things. It has a lot of modules in there. Only downside, I think, is that it's, like I said, adds a lot of layers of complexity. This is a very complex system underneath. What happens, all the modules that are in there, do not underestimate the complexity. If you want to debug this stuff, if there's something wrong, that's not fun to do. Also, there are a lot of modules in there, so if some modules need updates, you have to fully retest everything. It's complex, it's good, but it's complex. Not sure how it's compatible at this moment with multilingual websites. It used to be a pain in the ass. Not sure if it's better right now. Somebody knows that? I'm not sure. But definitely take a look at this. This really nice user interface also for offers. Not that technical. Panels is technical. It just wraps a little layer around it. It makes it more user friendly. Then we have paragraphs. Lastly, this is actually our favorite at Amplexor. Probably most of you have seen this, I'm not sure, but this is the backend interface in Drupal, and what it does, it says components right there, And you get options here to add components. And you see you can add a subheading, you can add a text, you can add an image, and you can have a number of buttons there which you can define. Those are called paragraph bundles. And bundles can consist of different fields. Just like you build a content type, you now build a bundle. That's powerful. Because you can combine these in any order you like, and you see this little handle, so you can rearrange them very fast. And you can customize it, you can build your own fields on it. Which, for example, change the background color, put a class on it, and you have Bootstrap, you can do all stuff with that. That's nice. Only downside is that you constantly have to switch back to the front end, to the back end to edit it. So you have a page, you want to say, I want to add a paragraph or component, like you will call it yourself. You have to go to the back end, enter it there, save, you switch to the front end, then you see the result. Not optimal. So what happened there is a patch now, and it's right there. If you go to the URL, you can see the progress on it. It needs review and work. All credits to Strijkijzer from Belgian Drupal community for initiating this patch. And what it does is actually, in the front end, it gives you the option to edit the paragraph. So you do not have to go, you still go to the back end, but you only see that paragraph and not all the other paragraphs around it, and you don't have to click open the one you want to edit, you go directly to the one that's relevant. And what actually the idea was, we started building on that patch and extended it to also make deletion possible. Obvious next step is you can also delete this piece from the front end without going to the back end in this case. And also edit, also create new paragraphs in between existing paragraphs without going to the back end. So that's nice stuff. You see on the top you have this dotted line, and when you hover over it, the dotted line appears, you get the wheel you all know from Drupal, you click it, and then you can change, you can add whatever component in there you like. Time's up. Time for a small 1-minute screencast. So it looks like this. You can edit an existing one. Quickly change something to bold. Save it. See, text becomes bold. Then you can also use it to add things. A lot of options there. Add an image. Browse for the image. Alright. You can also have a caption. You can choose the fields you like. You can extend it. All without coding. Then you get this. And then you can say, alright, next I'm gonna add, let's say a video probably, it's gonna do, yeah. It's gonna add a video below. We have media library, the Star Trek trailer. And it will insert the video right there. Reordering is not possible yet. So if that looks something you could do, please join in the issue queue, and we could use some help there to also build the reordering in the front end.
Can you show the number of the patch maybe again?
Yes. Last thing is deletion. Obviously, you just click delete, and should this tab be here, we can leave it out. It's gone. So that's how it works. What could be cool here too is that if you add a certain, let's say I want to add a text paragraph, you get a sample content in there, like we talked in the beginning, and it pops up immediately, and then you can use inline editing in Drupal 8 to start editing it. So in Drupal 8 you never have to switch backend if we do this the right way. So to finish off, I will show the idea in a minute. The Drupal UX is optimized for technical audience, not for non-technical people. We should embrace UX people more, I think, and Drupal has all the potential. You can build this stuff with Drupal, but it's not fully polished yet, and we have to do some work there. All right. Any questions? Yes.
How does Drupal 8 handle metadata and keywords for better SEO?
Metadata is a separate module now in Drupal 7. Drupal 8 does nothing more than Drupal 7 from core, I think, to have metadata SEO wise then in the header of the page. Not
So
that
it's
I
like
know
previous
of.
So
I'm
it's
sorry?
same like the previous version?
I think it is. I've not looked into that, but I guess it's not in Drupal 8 core. But the metadata module is good.
Do you have any experience with paragraphs in combination with panels or something like Analyzer, so you can have your paragraphs ordered in different regions?
Not yet, and I don't think we're gonna do that. We actually never use panels for production websites that are on Plexer because of the obvious problems with usability. Because we think it's more like a technical module for technical people. But what is interesting is that you can have paragraphs nested inside other paragraphs. And that's even more powerful because you can have, if you want a 3-column layout, you can just add a paragraph which you call 3-column layout. You add it and then you have 3 regions to add paragraphs in. You can do that and it works with multilingual, it works with Workbench, we tested that, that's good. Other things? Christoph?
If anybody is interested in like UX, site builder experience, and all this kind of stuff, right now in the Drupal community, we've got events for developers, we've got events for CEOs. So we have a bunch of different events, but we don't have something yet for the site builders, for people that are concerned about editorial experience and like the click interface. So I'm trying to get a new event type started. And I tweeted about it just now, so go and check it out. It's a sign-up form. Probably the first event would be here in Belgium also, and I'm trying to like get an idea of like how many people would be interested in that. And I want you for a speaker.
Did you just make that up on your seat and created the event?
No,
and
no,
then is it longer on your mind?
I've been doing this for. I started with pushing for it with Jam in Wrocław, Drupal Camp Wrocław. So it's about a year and a half that I'm kind of like building momentum for it. It's kind of it's the click pride movement, kind of like the Front-End United thing.
Yeah.
It's for the clickers that don't want to code.
Interesting initiative. Very good.
Come and
That's what we
join
need.
it. Yeah.
Other questions? Time to stop, says Sven. Okay, thanks everybody.